was 1995, and exciting new 32-bit game systems such as the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation were upon us. But our favorite 16-bit game systems would have one final stand thanks to home versions of Midway's excellent third Mortal Kombat game. Now, Probe Software got the boot, and so Sculptured Software was called in to do both ports. Let's see how they stack up. That's right, we're going to use a little video editing trickery to put these bad boys side by side. On the left is the Super NES, the right the Sega Genesis. As you can tell with the slightly higher vertical resolution, 240 lines versus 224, that means my editing turned out right. After the massive success of Mortal Kombat 2, it was time to come up with something a little different, being as Street Fighter 2 was doing so well in the arcades. So in this version, Midway went away from the Oriental themes in favor of a more modern Western feel. The gameplay is much faster and incorporates what some fans have called dial-a-combos. If you press the right buttons in the right sequence, you unleash devastating amounts of damage against your foes. Beware though, the difficulty has been cranked right up, and the CPU opponents are quite good at telegraphing what you're about to do. Combine the standard juggling combos with dial-a-combos, as well as certain programming bugs, and you can sometimes deal out 100% damage without ever getting hit. Side by side, as you can see, both ports are very well done, the Genesis matching up very well considering how bad MK2 was on the system. Looking at the bank stage here, it would actually seem as though the Genesis has some slightly better lighting effects, the pillars having some light reflection on them, where in the SNES version they're more plainly colored. Again, in Motaro's lair, both systems have nicely lit backgrounds, the torches are animated, and both are very detailed in the bricks behind you. Despite having less RAM than the SNES, the Genesis characters are equally as well animated, with far more frames of resolution than in MK2. Ripping right into the Sega Genesis cart, it is a full 32 megabit game, the largest the Genesis can support without expensive bank switching hardware being built into the cartridge. It's clear right off the bat that Sculptured Software utilized every single megabit, as all speech samples and sound effects have been included. You might be wondering how this was done, considering the Genesis can only use one of its 10 sound channels for sampling, while the SNES can use all 9 for multiple samples at once. It's a neat trick, one that would be used by Capcom for Super Street Fighter 2. Basically what they did was sample the voices at half quality, and when 2 samples were needed at once, they would get combined into one sample. And it doesn't really seem to affect the quality of them, as the slightly distorted nature of Shao Kahn's voice actually makes him more angry and aggressive sounding. The music is particularly well done with great percussion sounds, and it definitely does not have the tinny sound associated with some Genesis games. My only complaint is that all the music is in mono, possibly because the cart maxes out the Genesis hardware, and adding stereo sound might have compromised the game in some other way. Gameplay absolutely requires the 6-button controller, as trying to execute combos with the regular 3-button is an exercise in frustration. Being as Sculptured Software did the amazing MK2 card on the SNES, it's no surprise that they've done a superb job here also. The first thing you'll notice is that they've taken advantage of the SNES sound hardware's ability to pan sound effects in real time, and all of your character sound effects feature positional audio. The music also sounds excellent in stereo or surround, and perhaps you're thinking I'm going to hand the easy victory to the SNES, but I'm actually going to label this one a draw, because the stereo sound in the SNES cart matches up with the angry aggressive sound of the Genesis cart, and I can't pick a clear winner. The SNES cart does sound amazing, but overall it's muted sounding, whereas the Genesis sound is edgy and more dynamic. Neither game has an edge in graphics, sound, or gameplay. That's right, after the Genesis winning round 1, SNES round 2, I declare round 3 to be a tie. Be that as it may, it's shocking that there indeed was a Sega Master System port, and that's all I'm going to say because the concept is just ridiculous.